Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to today's episode of Her Version, a podcast dedicated to hearing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. If you are new to this podcast, make sure you follow, like, and subscribe and share. Today's podcast is dedicated to women who are living lonely married lives, who are trying their best to manage a household with an absent husband. Today, I am talking to Torie. Torie has endured a narcissistic relationship, failed marriage counseling, a divorce, PTSD, and lupus. Torie is here today to remind all those women out there who are living in a loveless marriage, who feel like their life is meaningless, that there is hope. Don't stop, keep going. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
How are you?
Good. That was quite the intro. I feel good.
Well, thank you for joining us. Seriously, it's women like you who are opening up their lives to us, that are making platforms like this possible. So I so appreciate you taking the time today to sit down with us and share a little bit of what you have going on in order to inspire some of those women out there who are enduring things that are similar.
Yeah, definitely. I'm very glad a platform like this exists.
Awesome. Thank you. How was your weekend, by the way? Did you do anything exciting?
Yeah, it was fantastic. My 3-year-old got to see fireworks for the first time, so he was really excited.
For the first time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was he scared or was he super excited?
No, he was excited. My kid is not afraid of anything, I'm convinced. But yeah, he was really excited.
Oh, I love that. How old is he? I know he's little.
He's 3.
He's 3. Oh, what a good age.
Yeah.
That's a fun age.
Yeah, he's great.
It goes by fast. I'm sure everyone tells you that.
Yeah, that's what I keep hearing. But right now he's like hit an insomnia stage, so it's not going by fast enough. But yeah.
Oh no, why? Do you know?
I don't know. I have no idea. It's I mean, he just moved states, and like I have a different house, his dad has a different house, so I think it's just a lot of change all at once, but we're making it. We're getting it.
I love that. Funny story to go along with that, actually. My son, he's like one of these kids that he's 17 now, but he's always been one of these kids that loved like fun facts. He loves to like wow people with just ridiculous things. So he used to read the Guinness Book of World Record books. Uh-huh. And there was one time, he was probably around the same age, like maybe 5, 6. And he read somewhere that Florida, which is where we live now, was the sinkhole capital of the world. And he read this story about how a house, like overnight at like 1 a.m. or something, just disappeared into the earth. And it was so far down that they couldn't even send help. So for like 2 or 3 months, same thing. My poor kid couldn't sleep because he was so afraid that in the middle of the night, he was just going to fall through the floor.
That's terrible.
So terrible. And so who knows? Maybe he read something or saw something.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
There's so much, especially now with the internet and stuff.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So anyways, I want to dig in a little bit about you, a little bit about your past. I would like to start with your marriage, since that's kind of where this whole thing kind of starts.
Right.
So when were you married, and did you know you were marrying an abusive person?
I don't think anybody knows that they're marrying an abusive person. Just personally, I mean, I don't know every story out there, but definitely, I definitely didn't know. Hindsight is 20/20, and I can see red flags all day long. But I was really excited to get married. I got married when I was 25. I met him when I was 20, and we had lived together since I was 21. So we were together for 6 years, and then we were married for 3. So a total of 8-year relationship. And no, I did not know I was married to this person.
That's a tough one. When did you finally kind of start realizing that he was? How many years in?
Pretty much See, and that's tricky because the reason why we got married when we did was because I had gotten sick. So I was symptomatic with lupus, and I didn't know I didn't know what it was, because I mean that's a common story with any autoimmune disease, is it takes a while to figure out what it is. And so we had decided to get married this particular year so that I could get on his insurance, so that I could start going to all these specialists and everything, trying to figure out what I had. And honestly, it was one of those things where I had noticed just an apathy towards me before we got married. And I don't know if I expected it to change after we got married, or I just got so sick so fast that I don't really know what happened there, but it was definitely shortly after we got married, I started to realize, like, this is not what I expected it to be. And I am a sensitive woman. And so I expected, like, I just kind of thought it was my fault. I thought that, I wasn't as vibrant as I used to be, which he would remind me of sometimes. And, it was my fault that I was sick and unattractive to him. And so, yeah, that was kind of how I started noticing. And that was probably the year that we got married. But I did become bedridden that year. Later that year, I was hospitalized several times. I think the count that year, well, up until the diagnosis, was 5, in between getting married and then the diagnosis. That was 5 hospitalizations. And then the rest of the year, so 2017, I think it was 3 more hospitalizations after that. So there was a lot of stuff going on. And so it was just kind of like, oh, he handles stress poorly, and, just making excuses all day, every day.
Yeah, I totally understand that. So you had lupus, like, when you met, you already had it. You just didn't know about it.
Yes, that's correct. I would experience, headaches or rashes or joint pains that other people my age didn't experience. And it wasn't until I actually started becoming isolated from my other friends and family member through this relationship that my symptoms started getting really, really bad. And as my self-esteem went down, so did my health. So it was all just kind of mixed in together.
Got it. When did you actually find out? Because you're saying that you had it, but you didn't necessarily know. So when did you actually find out what it was?
So it was spring of 2017, almost 8 months after we had gotten married. And that was after I had lost 40 pounds, all of my hair, and become hospitalized. And I'm not a big person, but I'm 5'11" and 150 pounds, give or take. And I was down to 118 pounds and bald.
Wow.
And hospitalized. And that was when they finally just, ran all the tests, and they were like, oh, okay, it's lupus.
Wow. So do you mind explaining what lupus is? Because myself, and I'm sure many people, don't quite know what it even is.
That's totally fine. It's an autoimmune disorder. So basically what happens is your immune system starts attacking your body and treating it like it is a foreign disease. So oftentimes it will affect the skin and hair and joints first, but as it moves into to more of a systemic thing, it'll start affecting your organs as well. So I have had heart disease, lung disease, kidney disease. It got into my brain there for a while, and it was really hard for me to focus. I got really bad brain fog, as well as joints, skin, hair, all that stuff. So basically, one of the ways to cure it is to take anti-organ rejection medication, which I am actually currently on. And that helped me go into remission. And that's just kind of teaching your immune system that you are not the enemy. And there's also bone marrow treatment and stuff to like make sure that your immune system isn't fighting yourself so hard.
Wow. Is this genetic? How does it come about?
There are some genetic components to it. However, it's honestly like a lot of psychiatric disorders where there might be a genetic component, but there's usually a stress factor that kicks it off. So, you know, I'm one of 6 kids. We all might have the genetic propensity for it, but I was the one with just the right environment to kick it off.
Wow. So is it run in your family when they said you had it, were you kind of like, oh, my great, great, great grandfather had it, or?
Nobody before me had been diagnosed, but my grandmother had lupus-like symptoms, so she may have had it. She would get tired easily, and she had a lot of joint pains, and she would have heart palpitations and stuff like that may have been lupus. She passed away in the early 90s, and they really weren't even sure what lupus was back then. And so it wouldn't surprise me at all if she had it and she just never had the opportunity to get diagnosed.
And then how is it that you have hair right now?
That was 2017. So that was 4 years ago. This is 4 years of growth. But it's actually kind of funny. I'm just showing everybody. It was actually kind of funny because the summer I got divorced, I lost 50% of my hair trying to get it. And so there's like an underlayer that's like a good 2 inches shorter. And that's like the 50% of my hair that I lost just from stress and stuff.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So it's definitely I don't want to say a struggle, but a challenge. Definitely a challenge.
Yes. It's an added factor you have to kind of take into consideration a lot.
And during all of this, obviously this is a hit for a newly married individuals in general. Mm-hmm. Did you guys do some sort of counseling or anything to kind of try to keep the marriage going?
Yeah. So during my diagnosis, I had actually been overprescribed steroids. So the person who diagnosed me was just a normal primary care physician, and he did not want to refer me to a rheumatologist. I had a bad experience with a rheumatologist before where she just kind of threw me on pain pills and shrugged and was like, sorry, I don't know what you have. And so he chose not to refer me. And he prescribed me 100 milligrams of prednisone, which is a dose that they don't usually give people unless they're hospitalized because psychosis is such a high likelihood of a side effect. Wow. So he sent me home, and then he went on vacation. And so I actually experienced psychosis, and it was my husband and I at home, and I started experiencing all of these symptoms. And I actually caught it before anybody else did because I was a psychology undergrad. And so I knew all these abnormal psych things. And so I could feel myself kind of losing it. And so I told him, I remember the night very clearly. I said, I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me, but like, I'm going crazy right now. And I brought up this, the only word I had to go along with it was manic. I'm manic right now. And so I brought up this, just WebMD, what mania is. And I showed it to him and I was like, you have to do something. You have to do something. And so he read it and he just kind of shrugged and he was like, none of that makes sense to me. And I went to the ER that night, and they gave me some sleeping pills and sent me home. And they were just like, we're just going to decrease the medication a little bit and see if it goes away. And that was the last thing I remember. And I was actually at home just in this state of psychosis for 4 days before I was hospitalized again in a psych ward for another 8 days. And so he did visit me a couple of times, but there were 2 days where he didn't know where I was, and he didn't call around because they had taken me to one hospital, and then I had gotten transferred to another hospital that did have a psychiatric wing. And so I felt, very, very left. I didn't, I remember my third day. So I remember the night before I started losing time and, just like begging him to do something. And then I remember my third day in the psych ward where I was still, coming to, like, trying to figure out which way was up as far as reality. And so after I got home, he didn't want to kiss me. He didn't want to talk to me or look at me or anything. And I was like so excited to be back with him. I was like, oh, I'm finally home. We can like be together again and everything. And he really wanted nothing to do with me. And he actually sent me away to my sister's. And I was sent to my sister's a couple of times just because he didn't want me in the house. And so I just told, I just asked him, like, what do you want here? Like, we can't keep not talking. Like, we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
And so he was just like, well, I just need time and space. And so I signed us up for counseling, and we went to 3 sessions. And then he decided that he really didn't need it anymore. And so I said, it's okay if you quit, you just need to sign up for personal therapy. And he was just like, oh yeah, I'll totally do that. And so a couple weeks went by, and I was like, did you sign up for it yet? And he goes, oh yeah, I'm still meaning to. And so I asked him the following week, and he's like, it's my thing, not your thing. You can't ask me anymore. And so I asked him a few weeks after that again, and he was just like, oh yeah, I'm not doing that. So that was the first time we tried therapy. The second time was early 2019, when it was clear that our relationship was close to over. And
how did you know that?
2018. So how chronological do you want this to be? Because I can just, I'm kind of like skipping around here.
Doesn't matter. I'm listening.
So 2017, I was told that it was my last chance to get pregnant, and which is not true for anybody who has lupus. You never have like a last chance to get pregnant. And so we went ahead and got pregnant with my son, who is now 3 and healthy and wonderful. And pretty much as soon as my son was born, there was a marked difference in how my ex treated me. And it was like all the focus was on my son, and I was more of a resource than a partner. And so I'm so grateful to be going through therapy at the time. And this whole time I was going through therapy. And so, I would tell my therapist, I'm like, he really doesn't love me. He doesn't love me like my son. And he doesn't love me like he loves my son. And she was just like, oh, it's normal. Like, some guys are, all about the mom after birth and not really about the kid, or, it's the opposite. And I guess it's the opposite for him. It'll even out. And it kept not evening out. And she was as surprised as I was that it wasn't evening out. And so it got to the point where I was so unhappy that I was actually, coming to him with like decisions like, hey, if this doesn't happen, we need to talk about next steps for our relationship, because this isn't working for me anymore. And So it was halfway through 2018 that I actually had the courage to pipe up about my needs and actually set clear boundaries for him. Like, you can't say this to me anymore. You can't do this to me anymore. You can't expect this of me. And it was pretty wishy-washy at first. I had never really stood up for myself in the relationship. And so he was kind of calling a lot of my bluffs. And so it was New Year's Eve, 2018/19. And I was watching this girl on Instagram, and she was just talking about your goals for the year. She's like, what is not working for you right now? And I was like, my marriage. Like, it is really rough. I'm miserable. And so I walked into his office, and he was working, and I was like, I'm not happy, and this is going to end unless you do something like right now. And so he was like, okay, yeah, maybe we can go to therapy again. I don't know. It's very nonchalant, like still calling my bluff. And so we went to therapy, and I mean, it took 2 or 3 months for him to schedule it. And it was still a lot of dragging his feet and not really taking me seriously. And so when we did schedule it, they gave us the assignment, do something to show the partner that you appreciate them, just something small every day for a week. And I think the first night I made his favorite thing for dinner. And he was actually really sarcastic with me, like, oh, look at you, like, you doing the homework. And then the next day, I think I bought him something small at the store or something. I think it was like a candy bar or something. And then it was, again, like, met with resentment, where it was like, look at you, all better than me, showing appreciation. And that full week, he did not do the homework. And then nothing. And then the following week, he did not do the homework. And then the third week, he did not do the homework. And I'm feeling extremely validated at this point, just because I finally have a witness to, how unimportant to him I am. And so she said, the only homework you have this week, you don't have to tell her, that you appreciate her or anything, but figure out why you can't. And so he walked into my room. I was meditating. And he walked into my room, and he goes, I figured out why I can't show any appreciation for you. And I was like, okay. And he goes, it's because I don't love you anymore. And I'm like, I know. Like, this is what I've been trying to tell you for the last year and a half, that you don't love me anymore. And so he didn't want to break up. He said we should probably separate and live in separate places for 2 to 3 years before he might be able to find a way to love me again. Again, it was my fault for getting sick, and my fault for going through psychosis for the reason that he didn't love me anymore. And so I was like, no, I'm good. I think this is where we call it. And so during that therapy, he actually started looking up narcissistic personality disorder, and he came to the conclusion that he had it, and everyone involved kind of agreed. And so, like a true narcissist, he didn't want to be left, so he divorced me. And it was actually a good thing in the long run that we had that, because now he's actually in personal therapy, and he is working on his narcissistic traits very hard for our son, which is his primary motivation. So I'm really thankful that I went through all that, because now my son has a dad who is very aware of himself and really working on himself. So, yeah.
I love that. Absolutely.
Yeah. I know. It's a lot.
How does that feel? How did it feel right now saying out loud that he doesn't love you? I kind of felt like your voice changed. Are you in a good spot with that or not in a good spot with that?
I am. It comes and goes, you know. It's the person telling me that he didn't love me anymore was not the person that I met, the person that was my best friend and we wanted to like go do life, you know. So it is hard because that person does not exist anymore. And there was a marked change in him when I started getting sick. And I've never seen that person. I mean, even with, you know, now going on, so we got divorced in 2019. So he's going on 2 years of personal therapy. Even with that, I have not seen that person come back. And so it's not necessarily like I lost the love. It was that person died during those trials that I was going through. And so I still grieve the loss of my friend there.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that.
Yeah.
100%.